having dual role. You are not just at one side you are a member, and the other side today for this session you are a guest as well. So welcome to you, and over to you for the book review.
Thank you once again, Arun. I'll at the outset I'd like to thank BMA. I'd like to thank Professor Patkar for inviting me to do the honors. I would like to thank Kavita and the executive committee for considering me for this book review. And we had a beautiful function in the morning at JBIMS where we connected with everybody. We had a look at the book, and we also talked about the earlier book that was released by Dr. Patkar. And when I recall my association with him for the last 40 years, 40 long years, I entered the classroom in JB in the year 1981. And that was the time that Sir used to talk about commitment, and Sir used to talk about intention. The mind monkey and the murti within were not yet, I think, fully visualized by them. They were somewhere work in progress. But then when Sir used to talk about it, and we used to also wonder that, apart from teaching finance and strategies, and, he used to teach us financial planning and control systems. How come it is that Sir talks about, the intention and the commitment in addition to finance and strategy? But then, of course, we were young then, we were immature, and we did not understand actually the role of spirituality in life so much. But as I read in the book, it is said that somewhere in the 1980, Sir had some kind of a realization, and which was the life-changing experience in 1980. And that's how when we were in the classrooms in 1981, this thought of mind monkey and murti within was already taking shape inside. The back cover of the book quote says, he discovered lasting peace, happiness, and tranquility. And since then, with this transformational perspective, he has been leading his life as a corporate manager and advisor, teacher and trainer, and a family man. And so we became also, I think, happy beneficiaries because we were in the classroom. So while Sir was growing with it, we as his students also got an opportunity to grow with this. And I'm ever so grateful for that. Then somewhere around 15 years back, Sir conducted a workshop for the students in JBIMS. And since they were my students, I sat through the workshop. And that is when, the concept of mind monkey and the murti within became very, very clear to me. Mind monkey is something to which in the new book he refers to as concept. And the murti within is something that he refers to as content of what we are, or the real essence of us. And this slowly became very, very clear. Then the first book came, and now the second book has come. And this transformational journey, it shows in the writing of his, but as far as we look at Sir himself, I feel that age has just stopped. Sir has not aged at all. Sir looks just the same. And I think that is the miracle of that tranquility, that peace within, and that happiness that he has discovered. And therefore, we are also inspired, and we are so very motivated to also learn, understand from this book, and discover that happiness and tranquility, which when I was going through the book, and I said that I would be looking at the introspection, which Sir said that is in the last pages, the third part of the book is. So I looked at these pages, last 30 pages from the page number 160 onwards. And as I sat to introspect over these pages, I realized that concept of concept and the concept of content is actually very simplified, very simplified version of what he writes at the back of the book. He says, use your mind, don't let it use you. I think that in one line is the crux of this book. He exhorts the readers to say that they should use their mind and they should not let it use their mind, them. And little later, he asks a question. So who's really in charge of your life, monkey or Murti? So as long as we are questioning ourselves constantly and we learn to internalize this awareness that who is really in charge of our life, whether it is the monkey or the Murti, whether it is our mind which is using us or we are using our mind, I think it is really possible to gain that tranquility, that peace of mind. And on this, with this introduction, I will share some thoughts that I have gathered while I read these last 30 pages. He marks this portion as the eternal truths. And in this eternal truths portion, he says, the only truth, therefore, is that we have thoughts, but the thoughts we have no reality. And that is before these eternal truths are mentioned. So the eternal truths begin from the page 161, and the page 160 ends with this comment, which goes like this: the only truth, therefore, is that we have thoughts, but the thoughts we have no reality. Now, this comes as a jolt to any thinking person, because if thoughts are not the reality, then what are we up to all the time? Somewhere else I had read that there are about 25,000 thoughts. They cross our mind in 24 hours. And the next reading was that 95% of the same on the next day. So there is very little innovation that we are capable of doing if we continue to remain under the control of our thoughts and if our mind continues to control us. This was the first insight that I got when I read this line. He goes on from page number 161 to give us some lessons in what is the art of living, let me call it that way. Then, what are the monkey tricks our mind can trap us into? And eventually, when we realize those realizations, which can help us reach that peace, that tranquility, and that happiness. So I'm going to divide whatever I'm going to speak into these three areas. And let me look at this art of living, where I quote page number 62. He says, if you focus hard enough on the silver lining, the dark cloud will disappear. Now, this is such a simple and such a beautiful thing to say. We first have to acknowledge the positivity of an unwanted situation. He's exhorting the reader to do so. He says, then when we begin focusing on it, we start seeing the opportunities, good news, and the advantages present in this situation. Until then, how are we ever going to realize those? And when that happens, as we start working on these, the new path becomes and we discover a new us. So by focusing or choosing to focus on the silver lining, if we can control our mind, we can make that cloud disappear. It is the fear of these past bad memories and hope for the best future is what we accomplish. So I thought that was the very good thought to begin with. Focus only on the positives. The next is page 164, where he says that fear of something and that something are two completely different. So while we try to focus on that silver lining as our natural tendency, as and when our focus drifts to the clouds. Okay, those clouds are nothing but the fears, the uncertainties, the apprehensions, and therefore the lack of confidence and the insecurity that we might have in facing our future. It's important there to note that the fear of something and that something are two completely different things. He asks us a question saying, you fear losing your job. How many times have you lost your job? You fear cancer. How many times have you had cancer? You fear having no money. How many times have you been bankrupt? You fear losing face in society. When has such a thing happened to you at all? So whether or not to let your life be run by the fear of things that do not exist is up to you. So if we choose to stay in reality, that in itself is equivalent to focusing on the silver lining. Actually, it's not much of a, much of an effort. If we just keep reminding ourselves of the reality where we realize that there are no such things which have happened to us, then why should we have the fear? Then why are we looking at the clouds? It becomes much easier to be able to stay focused on the silver lining. Fear comes from insecurity. Insecurity comes from a sense of inadequacy, which comes from a belief of inferiority. And it may come from the comparison and a sense of external competition. As long as we are looking outside, we end up looking and finding many clouds. If we look inside ourselves, and if we look at the reality of our lives, we realize that that silver lining is not hard to really find. This was another insight that I gathered from this beautiful book. He goes on to say that it is the past that we relate to is in the form of memories. All these fears, all these insecurities which are coming, they are coming from the past. And then he goes on to explain that this past need not be just this life. It could be our past life also. Just 2 days back, I was listening to a video from Sadhguru. He was talking about cheese with a particular flavor. And every time rats approached that cheese, they were given a shock. And that experiment was continued for a few days. It was discovered that 6 generations of rats did not touch that cheese. And then Sadhguru, in his own inimitable style, was chiding the audience, saying that nowadays everything that Google says is right. And unless the rats, the experience on the rats proves it right, it cannot prove itself right on human beings. So let me tell you that rats also have this kind of a memory. So for 6 generations, the rats did not touch that food. Now that's the difference between the rats and us. While we can think, we have a mind. Whether that mind is controlling us or we are controlling the mind. So we are also going to have those memories. But then the mind also has the capability to decide not to think of those memories and stay focused on the silver lining as well. So the past, present, and future are all in this moment now. Why? Because the vision of the future is also in this very moment. So there is nothing called a past which is relatively different from present, and there is nothing called present which is relatively different from future. They are all one. At this very moment, we are experiencing the memories of the past and we are experiencing the vision of the future. And that is what is actually clouding our judgment so much that in that cloud, we don't get to see the silver lining. We keep seeing the cloud. So we should not allow that judgment of us to get clouded. We should firmly remain rooted in the present, and the present is about the reality, because that is what Dr. Patkar says, that if you are actually experiencing it, then it is the truth. But if it is coming from your beliefs, then it is untruth. And as long as you become aware of it, remain aware of it, that it is coming from your beliefs and not from your experiences, you'll find it very easy to control your mind, and you'll find it very easy to stay rooted in the presence, which is the key to remain hopeful and optimistic. Moving on to the next realization, let me take you to page 181 from here. In the page, at page 181, Dr. Patkar refers to Einstein, Galileo, Newton, and everyone else. And those days when it's a testimony of what he said earlier. That in those days when everybody said that the earth was flat and it was the sun which was revolving around the earth and not. He said for all these years, thousands of years, we believed like that, but that did not change the reality. The reality was it was the earth which was revolving around the sun and not the other way around. So he says this is the game changer. Reality does not care for what you think about it or your knowledge or theories about it. It just is, and that's what it needs to be. It need not be given any more importance than this. The sooner we accept this and become aware of it, the better for us. It is a humbling realization, but one with immense possibilities. Life transforms when you relate to the present moment out of awareness, which is presence, and not the knowledge, which was from the past. So this is something to take home. And then I take you to the next page, which is 179, where he says that we are thrown into this moment with baggage from the past and no lifeline to save us. We cannot change our family, education, and upbringing, or the job and profession in which we are. Even if we change, we only change what we can. This baggage is what is referred to in Vedic literature as our karma. The way out of the troubled waters is by being honest to our karma and following its dictates truthfully. This is the art of living that I was talking about. That is your duty or dharma. So he's talking about how karma should lead us to dharma. Understanding this determines how we create our goals and achieving them, finding out what our karma is and be true to it. Then our life's purpose is determined by our karma. So as long as we are true to our inner voice, our conscience, the self, and that is the murti within, everything else will be taken care of by the murti itself. So let me end this part of my talk by saying, I always have two options. I can live every day with hope and happiness, celebrating life, or in dread with anguish, fearing death. I choose the former. So the beautiful logic, a very simplified way of understanding why the past baggage should not matter, why the future vision also, as long as it is linked with our karma and as long as we achieve it with our dharma, will make our life a very happy journey. And it will create a lot of peace and tranquility around us. Now let's move on to a little fun part of it, and that is the monkey tricks that our mind plays with us. I'll take you to page number 169. Here Dr. Patkar gives a very good list of an event which happens, but how we so conveniently and so compulsively create a generalization out. The event is, I was there, he was not. The generalization is, he has no sense of time. The event is, he did not complete the job as told. The generalize is, he never listens. It is raining. What wretched weather. He did not agree with me on an issue. He hates me. The result was below my expectation. I am a failure. The train is late. The public transport is a joke. How about taking a neutral, no point of view, so that we develop a space to operate from with our sanity? He's suggesting that if we be neutral, that is sthitapradni, in the language of karma and dharma, then we don't associate the emotions with the reality. And we don't try to give it a color, or we don't try to define it. Because as he mentions on page number 178, the moment we create a position on any subject, an opposition automatically rises. And if we are talking about the concept of the mind monkey, let us also remember that even Newton said that. An opposition therefore automatically arises. We then spend a lifetime vainly engaging this self-created demon. This is how we lose our peace. And that's so beautifully said over there. Let me take you to page number 184 from here. He suggests, therefore, that stay with the discomfort of the moment a little longer and discover that the universe was always on your side. If we allow ourselves a moment to realize that we are creating unnecessary generalization of one event, then it helps us to also get back to this understanding and realization that actually universe was always on our side and it wasn't such a bad place to begin with. And when that happens, from the time to time in no definite frequency, we need to remind ourselves that we are not our mind. And it is okay for it to be the way it is. If we can accept for whatever is as okay to be the way it is, it makes it very easy. Yes, please. Have I finished my time?
Sorry for interruption, but there is.
Have I finished my time? Yes. So I think I'll conclude it here. And I would just like to say that.
Yes.
I would just like to say that Corona pandemic pushed us into introspection. It made sure that we stay at home in the four walls. It brought us back to basics. It brought us on our knees. It forced us to introspect. And in a way, I think it's a very opportune time to read this book because it is only going to enforce whatever is written in this, because it helps us to introspect when we are within, looking inward more than looking outward. So in that scenario, I feel the timing is just right. And I wish to congratulate Dr. Patkar once again. Sorry, Dr. Patkar, I just got so involved in the book, I totally forgot about the timing. So there was a lot. I could have talked about some more realizations also, but then I guess it is good that people also read and have their own realizations, because each one of us is driven by our own realizations eventually. Thank you, Arun, for sounding the bell. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you, Chhaya. And exactly that is what I was about to say, that we want you to go on and speak about this book and the way you are narrating everything. It's so wonderful. At the same time, there are limitations of time. So definitely we have to sort of stop here and look back. Few things which you have shared really impressed me. One is that beginning which you made about the spirituality. And then very in detail, you talked about the introspection part of it, looking inwards, and the monkey tricks. So these were a few pointers which I'm sure that everyone liked. And it is highlighting what Dr. Anand is trying to tell us through this book. So thank you very much. And with this, Chhaya and everyone else, I have a pleasure of inviting the next person for the book review, and that is Nirmala Mehendale. Nirmala is a well-known name and face to BMA. Since about 3 decades, she has been in the industry, academic as well as corporate, 4 large corporates where she has served, and her contribution in HR system and processes is known by everybody. In BMA, she has got a special feather to her cap, and that is she's the first woman president of BMA in the year 2016 and 17. So with these words, I want to take this time and give maximum time to Nirmala for the further narration. So Nirmala, over to you.
Thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's a proud honor to be here and talking about a book written by a friend and a colleague and someone I've spent hours chatting about life and living, and whose work I can resonate with. So in a way, Anand and I have been on this journey for 15 years and had the privilege of working together in BMA. And in BMA, I think he always corrected when my mind monkey went back to, past concepts. And, so it's great talking about something that I read in 2008. And that was Dr. Patkar's first book. And it's the first book that actually comes and leads to this book now, because it's that book which most of us who've been through those workshops realize how Doctor tried to put the learnings from the workshop into a book. And that's not very easy. But he's in this book, it's user friendly, and I think anyone can get it immediately. Now, the biggest danger of what seems easy, and that's when I ask myself every time, it seems so easy. When you read this, you'll say, I get it. And yet, most of us struggle with the practice, right? And for me, I'm going to share with you every time I kind of know when my monkey is playing up. It's just an awareness. So Dr. Patkar puts it extremely well when he says, awaken your awareness. And so I'm going to read up from the points I've made so that I don't drift and I am, kind to all of you here. So he says, use your mind, don't let it use you. Okay, and no matter what your background in life, we all need to be aware that the mind plays tricks on us and the mind keeps manipulating us. And to lead a fruitful life, doesn't matter who we are, we have to be aware that this, what I call monkey business, that keeps happening morning, evening, and for some of us, even while we are sleeping. So, with the help of many real life examples, and what I really loved about the book was the part where he, speaks about examples to make that each of you will relate to. There is not a single complicated example where you can say, oh, I relate to this, or I have been through it, or I myself can give examples to narrate. And that's a very important learning in the book for me. I enjoy. But the first part is from Mind Monkey to Murti. So the first part is for all of you who've read Master the Mind Monkey. You will realize it's a kind of sum up of that book. And quickly, for those of us who haven't, I'll quickly get that out of the way, because the first part says he equates our chaotic state of mind to a monkey that will play havoc with us if it's left unchecked. In the same way, he compares the inborn wisdom to the murti within. So he's using terms for us to understand that some of us would like to say it's a godlike quality. Some of us would call it, a spiritual state of being. But that's what he's trying to say. The source of excellence. And whenever there's excellence, it comes from this murti, which is, something that all of us have experienced when we've reached excellence. It is that state of being, knowing that you're on the right path. The source of excellence gets eclipsed when we are in the mix of a cocktail of emotions. So suddenly that changes things. So who's in charge of our life is the question that each of us will ask ourselves. The monkey or the murti? And we all have a choice, and that's beautiful to know. And that's where Dr. Patkar's book gives hope, because he says it's possible to rewire our mind. And that's where the hope is, that it's only about practicing, being aware that this can happen and this change can happen. So the book will help us gain control of our consciousness, leading to peace and happiness. And that's where it's so simple, but it's about the practice. He explains that upsets, tensions, pressures, discord is always a mismatch between content and concept. So the mind drags past concepts into the present state. And all of us, like me, who've lived long enough and what we call, has experienced life for long enough, possibly will get it more, that how we tend to go back to the past while we're dealing with the present. And rather than just be in the moment and look at the present context of what's happening. And for me, that was very, very powerful of the message of the book. The mind starts believing the concept is right and the content is wrong. The concept is past, the content is the reality, and we change the present content very often to suit our concept. So this is the first part of the book. The second part of the book, he talks about experience transformation in the process of life itself. You can't experience life sitting somewhere else. You experience life by living life. So we're not talking about us, being somewhere away and imagining it, but actually in the practice of living. So he talks about sharing, and I'll give you one sharing of the book, which I can resonate with. And it's a simple sharing of a daughter who had to be left with her in-laws daily. And the husband and the wife are both professionals. So in that particular day, the wife has a kind of an assignment, so she has to leave early. And her spouse is now angry because he is now wondering how would he do this thing of dropping the child to the in-laws. So everything in a minute is changed and everybody is upset. And the question is, if you paused and if you looked at a situation, it's possible that all he had to do was call the person that was he had to meet and tell the person that, I'm sorry, I might be late. But when this person actually makes the call, he finds out that the other person is okay with you being late, and it's all is well. But you have to trust your inner voice and say, I mean, it's not so bad. What's wrong in just trying and making a call? And I think that's where the mind games. So we're always imagining the worst. And we're always, getting into this whole, what I call drama, or a victim mentality. That, oh God, my wife is here to harass me, and my wife is now brought up this. She never told me yesterday that she had this office thing, and so I am this victim. And I think each of us can resonate with that. And Dr. Patkar, as you know, and I've always shared with you examples of so today's example. Okay, this is just this morning. I was absolutely supposed to go and drop a parcel at 4 o'clock for someone going to Calcutta. And this person said I might be late, and then my mind started getting very stressed out. I got to be here at 5, and I've got to do the session, and now I've got to go and give this person. I live near the airport, so I've got to meet this person near the airport. And what if this person is late? And what if I am late? And my mind, this was all last evening. Morning, very often I'm a 4 a.m. person. It got a little better. And I said, oh God, I have VFast. I mean, this person is coming at 4, and if I ensure VFast goes and gives this parcel, I'll have this out of the way. And so, I got VFast at 8:30. At 10:30, the parcel was delivered. The person who took the parcel was extremely grateful because they were able to put it in their bag. Because by giving them on the road, they were not really happy, though they were being kind and taking my little packet. They also knew the quantity, quality. So this is the thing that we kind of, all his examples are around simple acts of, another story was, I'm doing some fruit plantation, and I was really upset that the person planting in the villages was not sending me photographs. And 1 day, 2 day, 3 day, and now I said, I don't know why the photographs are part of the process. He has to send it to me. I cooled down and I said, let me call the person who introduced me to this person. And that person said, Nirmala, just relax. This person is very, very trustworthy. Right? But he also is a bit nervous about certain new partnerships. And you're a new partner in this project. So, don't try and overstep your boundary and bypass him. It's not going to help you. Because I was wanting to call his junior, and I was wanting to escalate, this whole, so just relax. And around 3 o'clock, the photographs came. I retained the relationship with this person. I'm calm. Okay, so these are examples I relate to all the time with the book, because my monkey keeps playing, I'm normal. And it's only the awareness that says, is there another way? Is there a choice? And I think his book talks about, when you pause, is there a choice? And the last part of the book, which is the part is created by walking, is what Chhaya already spoke about, which is basically, this book makes no sense unless we start the practice. And the reason I keep telling my own stories is only to tell myself that it's not about the theory, but it's about the practice. And if the people who live with me and work with me can see some change, then the practice is working. So thank you, Dr. Patkar, for putting me through. I've been to a couple of your sessions. I've also read the book. I've also had the privilege of having conversations, not necessarily agreeable conversations, but disagreed, conflict, and sorted it out. So I really, really thank you. And I encourage each of you to go through this. It's available on Amazon and even gifted to people. And, I keep making comments in these books because I put it in pencil and people tell me, please. So I kind of learned, I got fired once I used the pen once on books, but I put it in pencil so someone can, erase it. And I thank all of you for listening to me today. And I wish and I'm very sure that all of you will be inspired to go and get yourself a copy. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Nirmala. And I'm sure that everyone liked the examples, the stories that you have given us, and that finale part, the pencil part of it. Fabulous. That's really great. So thank you very much for this wonderful narration and the way you have analyzed the book, the way you have reviewed the book. Thank you so much. Another next very pleasant duty which I'm going to perform is to introduce guest of honor today, Dr. Monisha Das. Dr. Monisha Das teaches marketing at the University of Maryland Eastern Shore. She has recently published a book chapter on bioenergy in the Springer series on energy. All these terminologies are quite new to me, so I'm becoming friends with it. As a Fulbright scholar to Japan, Professor Das researched the Japanese distribution system and published articles on her fieldwork. She has presented several papers at American Marketing Association conferences. She's the head coach of her university's Federal Reserve Challenger team, which topped in the state of Maryland in 2020. Wow, friends, the more I'm reading, the more I'm getting impressed, and I'm sure that something like this is happening to you also. Dr. Das has done recent consulting work with Kodak America and run research campaigns for Subaru America, IBM Weather App, and Bose, all reputed brands. Yeah. A scholar, avid reader, traveler, and speaker, Professor Das is married to Dr. Andrew D. Skiff, a professor of accounting, and has a son, Prem, who is a data scientist, who runs his own company and teaches data science at the University of Maryland. Monisha is a grand niece of Deshbandhu Chitranjan Das. Oh, wow. We all are proud to have you with us. Very proud roots in India. She's an alumni of JBIMS. Kavita would relate to it so well. So my pleasure to invite you, Dr. Monisha Das, as a guest of honor today here at this session. Over to you.
Thank you very much for that introduction. I would like to share my screen if possible. I do have a few slides, and let me see if I can bring it up. Okay, share. Is it visible?
Yes.
And am I loud enough, clear enough?
Absolutely.
Thank you. It's morning here, but I'm going to say good evening. And thank you so much for having me. When I started this journey, and Dr. Lagate asked me to speak, I said, what a coincidence. Anand Patkar and I were in the same batch in Bajaj Institute. And now here I am at his book launch. 76 to now is half a lifetime. I hope so. So my special thanks to Dr. Kavita Lagate for creating this reunion. And let me give a shout out to anybody from the batch of 76 who's out there to help It's a little different from what Nirmala and Chhaya went on. I really went on a international trip, and I asked myself, why did Anand Patkar write on this topic? And why did he think about the mind monkey and its antithesis, Murti? And then I realized there's so much going on in cognitive science, and there's so much being written about behavioral science, which is influenced by the mind, that they're very relevant concepts. And he's really creating a theater of the mind. There's this conflict between the Murti and the monkey, and who should win and who should be in charge. So that question that he raises as the title of his book made a lot of sense to me. Another thing that I related to when I read the book was his understanding of experiences of excellence. And it took my mind back to another psychologist who I happen to have researched, Maslow. I'm sure the name is familiar. In his books, which he has written about companies, actually, he's talking about growing companies, and he did come up with the hierarchy of needs, which many of us in marketing learn in the principles. And one of the things that I would have liked to do, if this could have been a little more interactive, is ask people in the audience, in the last week or so, what is the best experience you had? And if some of you can, just put it down in the chat section. And if there's time, we will look at it. A good experience, an experience where you felt. And then I also asked myself, why did Anand Patkar write on this topic? I know him as a man of physics. I know him as a man of finance. But now I find he has a third ability, and that is he's a man of metaphor. The metaphor between the mind monkey and the Murti. And it is so real. Another journey it took me on to was Japan. And there I am in Tokyo at the Sumitomo headquarters. This was a few years after graduating. I used to look very different. I found that the origin of the construct, mind monkey, is something which is part of Japanese culture. It's very Buddhistic in origin, and Buddhism has its roots in Hindu spiritualism. So what Anand Patkar did is he brought back the mind monkey from Japan back to India. And I also put down in kanji, which is the Japanese script, how they would write mind monkey. So it is very real. It is not just something that philosophers and people who have studied the mind haven't come across. The mind monkey is a construct which has roots in a lot of thinking. In Japan, they're very fond of these snow monkeys. And if you can read this, quiet the mind and the soul will speak. It's pretty much what Anand is trying to say, that if you can let the monkey rest a bit, you will let the Murti speak. And so I found this really became real to me on this journey. And I started relating it back to how in the West we think of man, the nature of man. And I went back to an article that I was very fond of when I was a doctoral candidate. It's called Nature of Man. It's by Jensen and Meckling. Jensen was a Harvard professor. Meckling was at the University of Rochester. And they published this article in the Journal of Applied Corporate Finance in 1994. And they came up with this concept of a REM individual. And I've spelled out what the abbreviation stands for. They said people in the corporate world who want to be leaders will have these qualities. R stands for being resourceful. Now, the mind monkey can be very resourceful, but can also be disruptive. And bads, the pros, the cons, the trade-offs that we may have to make to be able to get ahead, to be able to make the organization move. And of course, writing about finance, the first M is maximizing money or monetizing what you have. And Anand Patkar is, in a sense, doing that, monetizing a great idea, the workshops that he's run in the past, and he is offering it to us. And the last M actually is model, maximizing money model, but I see it as maximizing life. Maximizing life. That's where you let the Murti drive your actions and drive your thoughts. So the REM individual developed a higher meaning for me. And I found it, I must thank Anand Patkar for making it come back to me. Another line of thinking that goes into cognitive science is, the behavioral tradition. And I thought about it when I read, and here's a quote from page 128 of his book: operating on the cues of the Murti within will make you a centered self. So you anchor better. And this is a heuristic we all have, where am I starting my thinking from? Am I thinking as a finance person, an accounting person? Am I thinking as a layman? Am I thinking as an engineer? Or am I thinking as a human being? And so we anchor in something, and we could be anchoring in emotion. We could be anchoring in anger. We could be anchoring in fear. We could be anchoring in joy. So this is operating on the cues of the Murti. If you let the Murti anchor you, you can become a centered self, make the trade-offs, and move on. So I found that very illuminating. I also found another quotation, I don't remember putting the page down, the availability heuristic, another heuristic that's being researched by Nobel Prize winners like Kahneman and Tversky. The mind monkey takes over, lose the Murti, and it diminishes your awareness. So what you do here when the mind monkey takes over, to me, it means you become very absorbed in recent events or recent thoughts that you've been having, and you lose the wisdom, you lose the perspective that the Murti can give you, and it diminishes your awareness to just a part of reality. And so you just focus on what's available to you easily. You become lazy, mentally lazy, cognitively lazy. So you lose the Murti. Patkar is saying, step back, become more aware. Do not be afraid of discovering, meeting, coming face to face with the Murti within. It is forever willing to, for all the machinations in your monkey mind. And we've had conversations about meditating that has helped me get back on track. And then I do want to just share one or two more slides. A lot of Shakespeare is about studies in leadership, where having a monkey mind at the helm leads to tragedy. And one of them is a play by Shakespeare called Hamlet. Another one is King Lear. Then you have Macbeth, Othello. It's the same thing. The conflict in the mind where you have the mind monkey taking over, creating a tragedy. And that question, to be or not to be, whether it is nobler in the mind to suffer slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, take arms against them. And it all started, and it destroyed the kingdom of Denmark. It destroyed the organization he was part of, and it was handed over to his enemies. So the mind monkey can be very dangerous if it's allowed to run an organization, a country, or an institution. So what would happen if the Murti is in charge? Made a list of ideas that I picked up from his book. One is conflict resolution, coming to peace, letting the Murti take over. And of course, peak experiences, experiences of excellence. Very interesting, he said, seek out the millennial Murti. The Murti is not just among older people, it is also there among the younger people, where they can teach us things that we don't know. There's a different perspective. They also have the Murti in there. There's many examples in the book about that. And I really appreciate that because I do that with my students. We do learn from mistakes. I found anchoring in reason is what he's saying, not emotion. Understanding one's biases, cognitive and emotions. Not everybody knows everything. It is good to share of natural knowing or the creativity that one could unleash by letting the Murti take over. And image of what would happen to you and me if we let them. It's just like the portion Asterix would have and go and win the battle, which I thought was the theme that Chhaya brought up. And that is what I have for you today. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Monisha. You have brought so many deep perspective here. So much of, I can say that you've really, you know, Dr. Anand, that's great. But this book itself, you've gone in the very much depth of it. And you have brought it for all of us to help understand much more.
Thank you very much.
So thank you very much. And now, friends, वो टाइम जिसका आप सबको इंतजार था, गुफ्तगू. एंड गुफ्तगू कौन किससे कर रहा है? वर्दा पेन से is having the guftagoo with our author today, Dr. Anand Patkar. Now, little bit about Varda. Varda is a HR consultant, a leadership coach, having 34 years of experience. A very proud position as that in economics from Xavier's, MMS from NMIMS. She's visiting faculty at various management institutes, speakers at conferences, seminars, and most important thing which will interest all of you is she is Dr. Patkar's student. So nice to have you here, Varda. So welcome to you on the screen. And she's going to talk to us, not to us, actually to Dr. Anand Patkar, and we are going to be the witness, we are going to be the listeners, and what to say about Dr. Anand. Jitna bola jaye, utna kam hai. First proud statement which I can make is his association with BMA. 25 years of association with BMA, out of which 3 to 4 years where he served as an office bearer also. So BMA is indebted to you, Dr. Anand. There was a tremendous change in his thought process, awakening, awareness, whatever you may call it. And a person who is a corporate manager and advisor, teacher and trainer, a family man, really gone into the depth of this spirituality, this thought process, which made him write his first book, Master the Mind Monkey. And now this one, the second book. And we all are so happy, so proud that such a great author is in midst with us. we are going to listen to him, we can talk to him. So what a wonderful moment here. So may I welcome both of you here and listen to this Guftaku. Welcome, Dr. Anand. Welcome.
So thank you, Arun, for the kind introduction. Thank you, BMA, Dr. Kavita, for giving me the opportunity to have Guftagu with Dr. Patkar. In my class, like Chhaya said, whenever we talk about Dr. Patkar, the first word that comes to us is commitment, because on a Saturday, he used to take our class on Saturday at 6:30 in the evening. And his first address to us as students was that he wanted a commitment from us that we will come every Saturday 6:30 to attend his class. And he used to teach us financial planning and control. And one did wonder that how is financial planning and control related to commitment? It's only over the years that we've realized the connect. But at that time, I think we spent 2 Saturdays fighting with him that we don't want to give you the commitment. We'll try and come, we may fall sick, but we cannot come. So Dr. Patkar, my question to you is, you were talking about commitment, and suddenly you are now, over the years, the last 15, 16 years, you've been talking about the murti. The mind monkey gets focused at, but really you have been emphasizing on the murti. So it would be really interesting to understand how has been your journey, or what has been the triggers for you to move from commitment to murti within, which was really my topic, right? I was the one who was doing HR and you were the one who was doing finance.
Yeah, I don't know what I did with you guys as when you guys were students, as Chhaya said, and you were saying, but you're all taking out on me now, is what I can see. Asking questions which are so probing and so difficult to answer. Interesting though, they're interesting. And you're asking a, 35-year association to be covered. So I hope my answer is not as long-winding as this duration of our association has been. But
Right.
to come to the question, firstly, I would like to acknowledge and thank BMA, thank Kavita Lagate, thank all the for bringing in such a learn that it's so appropriate that Dr. Kavita Lagate chose you as the chief guest for today's function, and I'm so happy that it's all worked out so well. So, further to come back to the question about what has been going on, basically very simple. Firstly, nothing was pre-planned. It's not like at some point in time I said, I will now, next 5 years, I'll do this and I'll change my presentation by wording, calling commitment or this or that. It all just grew, communication. There are two things which were important, I think. That one was that I believe in retrospect that I was a teacher and a learner at the same time throughout my life. Being a teacher and a learner at the same time enables you to stay in connection with the participant, with the teachers, with the students, and their manner that connects with the participant. And that is a very, very significant thing. So when I was connecting with you, as I think Arun mentioned, that I had this kind of empowering experience sometime in 1980. That's you talk about attitude, skill, and knowledge. ASK is something that you guys specialize in. That's what creates. But when you really examine the experience that you had in the last week, if any of you think of anything that happened great in your life at any point in time, what was the single most aspect that contributed to it. It's about the attitude that you bring into the play. And that's really the empowering part of the excellence, empowering portion of the journey. And what I wanted to do all the time, that I discovered something special about that empowerment experience, and I wanted to share it so that people around me also get the same experience the same way. Now, I was here a corporate manager doing full-time manager and a part-time teacher. And as a teacher in the management schools, and you guys went to good management schools, so best in the country, in the city for sure, best in the country. So I had a syllabus to deliver on. I had to deliver on skill and knowledge. But somewhere I always knew that yes, skill and knowledge I can do, but the real stuff is attitude. So I had to find methodologies and wordings which would connect with bright young students like yourselves. And that's where at that point in time, I thought these words, which Chhaya has also mentioned, commitment and intention, I found that as a good way of connecting. You guys caught on very well, and you were able to take and run with that in such a way that you created excellence in your lives. And I can see a lot of my students in very high positions and have done very well for themselves in their lives, in spite of me in a way, but they have. So that was the connecting. So 10 years later, in 1995, I became independent. Now, I didn't have to teach in a college. I didn't have a full-time job. I was able to do teaching and training as a product that I was offering in a way. So I didn't have a syllabus to be constrained. 2000, got a chance to do a workshop in a company, engineering company in Aurangabad, and the only these guys are so big that they need a booster of something so that they become motivated, charged up, and something like that. Okay, please do something in that area. So I did something which I don't know. I didn't use the word Murti Mantra, and that what can I do was used in double meaning. What can I do can be a very defeatist statement, or what can I do can be a very proactive statement. So how do you, in fact, and that's when I also use this word context there in the book also, but that became the primary part of the way of conversation. Intention and commitment was going into the backdrop. These words were coming up to make that connect very well with the management, with the corporate people that I was connecting with. And then 5 or 6 years later, as Chhaya said, she kind of pushed me into writing a book. And when I wrote the book, it was as if I was doing a workshop with my participants. And when it came to giving a title to the book, I found that content was too kind of very routine. Mind Monkey was more attractive. So that's when the Mind Monkey came on. Since then, I also did a lot of work for families and friends, because that's another, which was not corporate environment at all. And that's where the words, these words, Monkey Mind and Murti Within, started catching on very well. So that's where we are over a period of time. And it's not as if it will stay this way. I don't know what the next set of words will come out of this, but that's how the whole journey has been. As I said, it's been a journey. There was never a destination. The purpose was change, context changed, words changed appropriate to that.
So I think, when I reflect back, you were always very passionate and very, even in your teaching, you used to always tell us that it is, if you have to deliver on the business results, the commitment needs to be there. And, I think the intent or your personal interest on this topic was always there. But I still feel, because I've known you as the head of finance, I've always looked up to you as a person who is extremely knowledgeable on finance. I know for several of our clients, you have done finance for non-finance and they've gone gaga over it. So what could have, as you started on this journey, what were some movements that helped or work towards encouraged you towards moving further on the journey? Because even today you're one of the best expert or most knowledgeable looked up person as a finance and a management person. But I know your heart is in developing the murti in others.
So you want to see how the two are connected or
Right.
disconnected.
I would really love to see how the two are connected, or where
Well,
is your
there
heart is.
This is a connect, no doubt about that. It's like that. Probably finance and strategy are competencies that I bring to the table with skill and knowledge. And thanks to the education that we had, thanks to the experiences and work life and what we applied in life and so on. So, although I must say that the finance is moving at such a rapid pace now that even I find out of date on that. So, instead of letting people find out that I don't know enough about it, I said I'll talk about things which I know a little more about, which is people have yet to catch on the Murthy business. So, that's a good way of escaping, but that's a lighter side of it. Yeah. Yeah, so the skill and knowledge is something that I bring in when I'm working on finance myself. So as an employee of a company or as a manager in a company, being responsible for financial results, being responsible for a role to be played as a head of finance, head of corporate planning, whatever it was, the delivery of the end was as important as the knowledge that I brought in. But in my role as a consultant and advisor, which is what I have been doing for the last 20 years or so, I can only create a framework for with my skill and knowledge maybe, but it's for the company and its executives to implement it and create a result for themselves. And that is where their attitude comes into play. It's not my attitude. And if I can find a way in which that empowering excellence, in which they can find their own results, that's really something that is going to be making a difference. And that's what I have been relishing doing in some way. It takes a long time. It is not an easy job, but it takes time and it can happen. And I have seen quite encouraging results. So it means that I am not given away or given up on the skill and knowledge that I bring in, but it is translated to create two people, mentioned two organizations, two situations. In one of them, recent in capital management. Yes. That's amazing. I mean, there were never such a result possible. Now, the skill and knowledge is something that I brought in, but the result was theirs. I mean, they've done it and they've created it out of the sense that they got out of what was required to be done and taking it forward and doing it themselves. And in another company, they were in a very loss-making and a very small set of operations. They were never had any great technology or any foreign technology or collaboration. But we worked on them. And it's the same set of people in backward, not really backward, but let's say rural Maharashtra, with local people, local engineers or locally trained people and absolutely nearby communities and so on. But they have created such great results, not because of the skill and knowledge, but because of the attitude. So that's where the two are coming together.
So do you, when you are doing these transformation initiatives, do you talk to people about the Murti within, or
yeah, in most cases, the initiation of this process. So in that sense, yes, but I do not remember a direct connect between the two per se. But yes, it was creating a context which is at the back of the mind. And then you're doing with the contents on an ongoing basis, if I use the word that I use in the sense, yeah.
So one question on the lighter side, those of us never, I know many people, this thing, we've never seen you lose your temper? So how does that happen? What helps you to do that? Is there some lessons or something that you can share with us?
You're asking this question.
Of course. How do you maintain this?
If you have had a longer conversation with my wife, you won't ask this question.
But you manage it in the external world.
Yeah, the thing here is that, yeah, it is possibly true that see, agitation happens in your mind and you get excited, you get angry, you get frustrated, you get agitated as you said. That happens because you have an expectation from the future. And when that expectation doesn't meet with the reality doesn't meet with your expectation, then you get agitated. But if you're in the present all the time, then you don't have an expectation. Then you're taking everything as it comes, which is really what this awakening your awareness is all about. And the thing is, the way this has been working for me probably is this, as I think Chhaya also mentioned it, how do you keep in touch with this all the time? The most positive, most powerful way to keep in touch for me has been to do the workshop. When I'm sharing this with people, it comes back to me and I'm able to stay rooted in it, this awareness. And then when you're rooted in the awareness, there is no question of getting agitated, getting angry or getting angry. I mean, in one of the conversations, Sadhguru was mentioned by somebody else over here. Somebody asked him, how do you stay calm? Similar kind of a question. Right. His answer was very interesting, very, very lovely answer. He says, I have not given the authority to anybody else to make me angry. So if I get angry, it's because of me. Nobody else can make me angry. That's right. Yeah. So staying, just to complete, staying in the moment, staying in the situation, being willing to absorb whatever comes, awakening your awareness. That's really what the subtitle of the book is all about. Right. And that's when you practice it, it just happens naturally. You don't have to work towards it anyway.
The other thing is, I think what you've written, the two books that you have written, they are so different from each other in one way, and yet they are so common. So can you just talk to us in terms of what were your motivators or what were your triggers, why you wrote the second book, Who is in Charge, and in such a different style?
Yeah, I mean, there was a, let me quickly go over this in a way. Why did I write the first book in the first instance, and why did I write the second book now? So I think Chhaya has already explained a little bit why I wrote the first book, because when I did this workshop with Chhaya and the Bajaj students way back in 2004 or 5, it must have been, she was the one who came and told me, this is not fair, sir. What you're doing over here is kind of worth Harvard Business School or even better. And after 4 days of work, 25 people benefit. What is the use? You have to make it go on a mass scale. And for that, you have to write a book. Now, I have an author. I've never written a book. But one of the things which keep going, when you become aware, then things happen with such effortless ease. That's what I'm saying in the book also, that my experience has been that when your murti the first book has participants. And it did well. I think my publishers just tell me it's been a kind of a bestseller. That's quite pretty well. Right. Got 2 translations done. One of my Tamil translators right here is showing something, writing on the chat. This thing also there's a Marathi translation as well. And I thought I'd done my job. All my writing was done. There was nothing else for me to do. But in the intervening period, lots of time people ask me when is the second book, and I said nothing. I know no reason to write any second book. I've already said what I wanted to say. But as time goes by, and then the recent times has been, the main format of my first, that main excellence workshop is a cumbersome format. It's got to be done once a week for 4 weeks. So getting people together to do that requires a lot of commitment. And in this days of where attention spans are very limited, to get all that going is very, very difficult to do. And these words, and I was also doing a lot of 1.5 hour kind of introductory talks, which were creating a link very well. People went up media, Facebook, to write some things to keep my liners, short paragraphs were coming up. And as time went by, one of the things that I realized, that if I were to take away all the cumbersome part of the first book, which has got all the management stuff into it, planning and budgeting and control and all that stuff, which for the layman doesn't matter. And the last part, part of the first book also is quite heavy on the method, how the mind works and how the reality is and all that. So I said, I'll cut out all this and enable a reader to get a feel for the whole thing. And that's why this book has happened now. Where as I think Chhaya also said, Nirmala said, the first book has been brought into 25 pages, 30 pages. Essence of it is brought into the first part in 25, 30 pages over here. Then it talks about examples in real life, in the process of life itself. And Nirmala quite nicely elaborated on that, how this connects with things that, for a person like you or anybody in Mumbai, if the buy doesn't come on time, your life is screwed up.
Right.
So these are instances of that kind that happen, and how mind monkey, you keep cool about it, and then things work out. So that's the second part. And the third, which I elaborated more on, are these one-liners, two-liners, or short paragraph. Actually, that part of the book is such that you can open any page anytime. It's not a book that you read and I've read this book and you come out.
Right.
It doesn't work that way. I'll be very happy if you keep this book as a bedside reading, and every other day you just pick up and read one page. You, particularly the second and third part, introspect about it, feel and discover yourself. That's what I would like to have to achieve. So the purpose over here is that not to teach you, but to enable you to discover your own awareness, awaken your awareness, and find out who's in charge.
Yeah, no, Dr. Patkar, that is really true. I have loved this second book more than the first book, because it is, each page has its own inspiring comment to make. And your stories are like the Satyanarayan stories, which kathas. Each katha will have its own discussion point and each introspection, and really makes you really think about being present. So I do wonder whether the family sessions you had, held were inspiration to some of the kathas that you've told us.
Yeah, in fact, they were. And yeah, I must thank, there's a person called Nitin Sheth. I don't know whether he's on this chat just now. But he was the one who was instrumental, like Chhaya was instrumental in making me write the book. He was the one who was instrumental in converting my work into family and friend situations. He did the workshop with me, probably in 2007, 8, I don't remember when. And 2 years, and I only knew him as a participant, nothing else. So there was no connect with him for a long time. And 2-3 years later, he came back. Suddenly, I got a call from him saying, I was in that workshop with you. And he said, I'd like to meet you. And he came and told me that, look, in these 2 years, he went out to the workshop and discovered his own life out of that. He was really, in that sense, wonderful. And he said, I want to do something for taking this message forward. He used to be a nervous tension person, used to take some tablets and all that. He said, I don't need any of this. My life is restructured, my business is different, and so on and so forth. But I want to do this. So we said, okay, let's figure out if we can share this with, and he said to you, there are people in the family and friends who want to also in saying, you go to corporates and do all this stuff, but we can't afford all this money, but we still want to learn. So we set up something. He engineered a process. He organized it all. And therefore, I think between 2010 and 2014 or whatever the period was, I did a very large number of sessions for family and friends. These were without any management content in there. There was no finance, there was no management, there was no nothing. It was only about relationships. And therefore, some of those stories that have come over there come from those sessions. In fact, during the pandemic also, we did one, thanks to his own initiative. We did a session of a small number of people between the first and second waves at his house itself. So that's important that I would like this to be shared with as many number of people as possible. It is not just about management. Management, when I do incorporate, I'll charge my fee and I'll expect them to do a proper role of it. But in families, we just do it in afternoons, avoid the lunches and so on and so forth, and reduce costs.
I personally believe this is a lovely gift, book to gift to people. So if I really look at it, you've covered the students, you've covered the corporates, whether it is at the young executive level and the leadership level, you've covered the family. So your book has really covered all relationships and made people, really empowered people. So my last question to you, I think the pandemic changed a lot of things for all of us, right? And the future is going to be hybrid, confused. I think most of us don't know how it is going to pan out and everything. How do you think this book will be helpful when we think about it from a future perspective and the social changes that are happening?
This morning, when the book was released at the hands of Ashwin Bhai of the Excel Group of Companies, he mentioned, in fact, he mentioned something quite similar to what you're saying, that pandemic and ESG, which is what in corporate life is called environment, social, and governance issues. It's not just pandemic is only a manifestation of one sort, but global warming and these are issues which we all have to live up to, which we have to face. And and he was trying to relate over there and tell you something that he said, which is on those lines is very important. That this all can happen and you can really operate out of it when you become conscious about what you're doing on real time, on a moment-to-moment basis. Like he was giving an example, when I go with youngsters, and he is senior to me in age also, but he says, we carry a handkerchief to wipe our face. But when you go somewhere, the children say, hey, what tissue hai na? Take the tissue, na? And you do that. And then you discard that tissue. And in the evening, you go and compare, global warming is happening so much. He says, who asked you to use paper all the time? Use your cloth and wash it. Na? That will be serving the same purpose. So if you become conscious, this is what the point he was making. If you become conscious about it on a day-to-day, moment-to-moment basis, that is the only way. You wait for somebody else to do something about this. The government should do, Modi should do, and international authorities should do. It's not going to happen. It's going to happen only if you take responsibility for it. And somewhere in my book, I've got a little word on this, that don't wait for others to do. When you don't get, the point I'm saying is that don't criticize anything unless you're doing something about it. And when you start doing something about it, that's really when you are empowered to work with it and work with people who are doing it, and you are able to see other people who are doing such wonderful work. Like the kind of work Nirmala is doing is not something that is easy to relate to, but if she says something, I listen because she's doing it, and that's spreading kindness, spreading all the work that she's doing. These are the kind of things that make a difference. So in my view, yes, the future is not going to be easy, but the solution is still lies within ourselves. And when you introspect, when you meditate, you will find the world has gone through crisis through several millennia, but the Murti of the world has still prevailed. Trust that Murti. That Murti is there. The power is there to overcome. So don't kind of give up hope. It's there and it's within each one of us. That's
So,
really
you know, what you've written on page 188 is something which I found very powerful. The pursuit of happiness is so stressful, right?
Yeah.
To be happy, one needs to take a break from it and just be happy.
Yeah.
So thank you, Dr. Patkar. I think we can go on and on.
Thanks.
And
Yeah.
there's so much to learn from you and there's so much to converse with you. But thank you so much. And over to you, Arun. I
Thank
can
you.
see
Thank you
Arun
so-
being, yes.
just time conscious, nothing else. But I think such a wonderful conversation that I'm enjoying. I'm sure that everyone is enjoying. But still, every nice thing has to come to an end. And with that, it's my pleasant duty once again to acknowledge all of you here for coming here and making this evening such a wonderful evening. Let me start first of all with President Kavita Lagate. She organized this program. She thought of this particular book review, and that is how all of us could get benefited out of this. So thanks to her, and I hope that whatever emergency she was attending to must be in order. So we pray for that. Chhaya and Nirmala, you set the context in such a nice way that we got a lot of glimpse of what is going ahead, what is in the book, and beyond that. And it was such a wonderful beginning. Professor Monisha Das, guest of honor. Yes, really, you have served the purpose of being a guest of honor, and you have really took us to a different dimension where we can understand the deep concept of what Dr. Anand Patkar is willing to tell to us. And finally, of course, the wonderful part of Guftagu. And Varda, you have done such a wonderful job. I think you could be one of the best anchor on any TV or radio show, the way you have engaged the doctor in the conversation. And very importantly, the way you have ended right in time. So that time management is fabulous. Thank you so much. And of course, I have to thank all the participants for their wonderful participation, listening, and a few comments coming in the chat box, appreciation. Wonderful. Thank you so much. And all this is possible because of the BMS Secretariat, who took a lot of pains to organize this session. So thank you very much, everyone. And we look forward, appeal everyone to read this book and reflect on it. And maybe that we will meet once again in a similar situation, or I don't know. My desire is that the same set of people should meet once again, but at least on some or the other platform at BMA, if we can meet, if we can have a good time together, it would be a real pleasure. So thank you very much. Have a nice further evening ahead, and all the best to everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that, Arun, and thank you very much for coordinating.
Thank you very
this.
much.
Most welcome, sir.
Thank you very much.
Most welcome. And with this, with everyone's permission, may we close the meeting?
Yeah, thank you very
Thank
much.
you so much.
Thank you, Doctor. Congratulations once again.